In the name of Amen, the Supreme, the All-Powerful, the one and only true Lord, and Amen we trust, and Amen we thank, and in Amen we continue forward forever. I want to address this voting thing and how everyone's in an uproar about black people, so-called black people, black Americans, participating in the electoral process. Why is the U.S. government and why is the political system so focused on so-called black people, black Americans participating in the electoral process, especially when, you know, black people have been the targets of racism continuously, targets of, redlining in their neighborhoods, gentrification in their neighborhoods, pretty much all of the negative things that went on here with so-called black Americans in this country at the under the watch of the U.S. government, who now wants so-called black people to participate in the electoral process. And they're being pushed in the direction of voting Democrat. Now, Joe Biden is making his rounds, going around trying to get support from black people to continue this farce, this electoral process to keep black people on the voter treadmill of constantly voting and getting nothing in return. While so-called black people watch as everybody gets something for their vote and black people get nothing for their votes. So you got to ask yourself, why would they expect black people to continue voting and participating in this farce of an election, these electoral processes? Why would they expect them to continue participating in this? Why do black people see it as a privilege to participate in the voting process when nothing is being done for you? You have people who leverage their vote all the time. They leverage their votes as a group, as a block, and they get things done for them. You got people who can't even vote in elections getting things done for them, like these illegals who are getting all of the rewards of being American citizens here. They're getting their reparations right now, and they're not even U.S. citizens. They're getting reparations by coming across the border, by being allowed in here. They're getting all the social services. They're getting welfare and food stamps and all kind of other stuff, subsidies that so-called black people can't get. You can't get the subsidies they get. They're getting vouchers for housing. Eventually, they're going to be given low interest or no interest home loans or grants or whatever the case. This is all being allocated to them from my tax money, from our tax money as so-called black Americans, and everybody's tax money for that point. You got these people getting reparations. You just had Jewish people get reparations for Holocaust descendants of Holocaust survivors. And that didn't even happen here in America. What happened in the Holocaust, though it was a bad thing, it's never a good thing when people lose their lives or get treated the way people get treated. But why is reparations being given to Holocaust survivors? These are people who did not go through this themselves, because that's what they tell black people when they start asking for reparations for the bad treatment of slavery and things like that. And not just for slavery and, but for the mistreatment that black Americans had to endure in this country, right? Like no one else, and still continue to this day, targeted by police, being the targets of predatory lending from these banking institutions and insurance institutions, redlined in their neighborhoods where, black Americans can't receive government loans. And here's a system that we pay taxes into. Here's a country that black Americans have fought for, so-called black Americans. I'm just using that term so y'all know I don't subscribe to the whole black thing, but just so you all understand what I'm saying. Why is it that black people have participated in everything here that was expected of them, from fighting in every war in this country, from paying taxes in this country, They've done everything in this country more than the people who are getting things out of this country, getting the benefits out of this country. Why is that allowed to take place? And then you expect them to vote? The term benign neglect was created for the black voters, right? For the black American voters, that politicians follow the same script. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Whenever black people start talking about what they require for their vote, what they need, they're basically going to be told that by these politicians that, yes, they understand the needs of black people and whatever the case may be, black Americans, and they basically don't do anything about you. They just basically ignore you. It's like benign neglect. You see, in other words, they're purposely neglecting you, and they're all on script. I watched this guy, Robert Kennedy Jr., who is now trying to run for office, for public office, or he wants to be, I guess, the next Democratic president. I guess the corporation is pushing him up now to do that. And he made his rounds already. You already see who he's going to. He made his rounds to the Math Hoffa podcast, and he went to, I think he went to the Breakfast Club, and he made his rounds, and he came with the whole thing when they asked about what you're going to do for black people. He started, I think, on the Math Hoffa show. Oh, well, what about the Native Americans? He started talking about, he starts talking about other people other than black people's interests here, black Americans who have suffered in this country like no one else and continue to suffer. And he sits here and starts talking about, what about the Native Americans? First and foremost, the so-called Native Americans who are not indigenous to America. They're not the real Indians, the American Indians. You already know who the real American Indians are, our people. So-called black Americans are the real American Indians, the descendants of the Mesoamericans who were the first people from South and Central America into North America. That's who the real American Indians are, our people. We've had land taken away from us in this country from the U.S. government. The U.S. government has taken land, millions of acres of land from our people. The Trail of Tears, or the Indian Removal Act, was the removal of so-called black people, not Native Americans of today, black people, the real American Indians. That was them being moved off of their lands in the South. The Indian Removal Act to be given, and these lands to be given to Europeans coming from all parts of Europe. That land was distributed to them, and these people were forced off the land at gunpoint. All people who were growing on this land, living on this land, the indigenous to this land, and here comes a government, here comes a criminal government that sets up in this land and starts to force people off the land, force them into paying taxes on land they were already living on, basically stealing the land from the people. The American indigenous people, the Indians, the real American Indians, the so-called black people. Okay? Yet, this is what we're supposed to be getting reparations for. Millions upon millions of acres of land have been taken from black farmers. Right. Millions of acres was taken from our people. This is why our people had the mass migration from the south up to the north, because you had groups of white terrorist groups, right, that were sponsored or connected to the U.S. government, that was helping to force our people off of their land. And you had groups that were created like the KKK that went about forcing black people, because they worked as a terrorist group to force black people, free black people off their lands, off of their property that was theirs before these Europeans even made their way over here. You see, that's the real history that's hidden. That's the real hidden history right there of our people. You see, and yet we were forced to still pay taxes. Yet we were forced to still fight in all the wars here in this country. Yet we were being abused and taken advantage of in this country. Our people were hunted down and made to fight in wars in this country, participate while being called niggers in this country, while being told that while these people were creating a South African regime of racial apartheid here, where we're basically being told we can't go to these places, we can't go to these places. We should be free to go to any damn place in America that we choose, because this is our country. This is not this is not white people's country. This is the country of the American Indians, so-called blacks, the so-called black Americans. This is our country. And it really makes me angry that our people don't know that we're still hold on to this lie that we came from Africa on some slave ships, like sardines, and that we black people, all these false misclassifications. But yet these people want us to participate in the electoral process. And you got to ask yourself, why? Answer, because that's a way to check our temperature. That is a way to constantly see how our people are thinking. See, they know how you think. The U.S. government knows how you think by the way you vote, right? And they pushed our people toward the Democratic Party. Why? Because the Democratic Party is really a degenerate party that supports things like abortion, that supports things like abortion, welfare, all kinds of social programs, right? A lot of different stuff I can't think of right now. But a lot of that is, that's not who we are as a people. It supports a lot of liberal, degenerate ideas that are bad, that are actually bad for society. Originally, our people were Republicans, you see, and we were the conservative people, the working class people when they voted. Our people were voting Republican right up until the 1960s. Then they got us forced us into being Democrats. Keep in mind, the Democratic Party was started by white racists who were the Dixiecrats. They started the Democratic Party up, and they got us voting in the Democratic on the Democratic tickets when we shouldn't be participating in any of these elections at all because we get nothing from it. How is it that people who have not been through what we've been through, who are not being deprived of anything, and so-called Native Americans are getting reparations, the Jews are getting reparations, the illegals are getting reparations, all money is going out, but then they telling us they can't give us anything, and we done sacrificed and we done paid into this system. We done sacrificed, we done been, we received the worst treatment under the law in this society. We've been treated like outcasts here, yet we're supposed to participate in the process. See, this is when you need people to participate in their own misery. You see, when you can get a people to participate in their own bad treatment, their own degradation and whatnot, when you can get them to participate in that and accept that, then that keeps the machine going. You see, they want people, so-called black people, they want so-called black Americans to be okay with the way they're being treated. They want you to be okay with being treated like second and third class citizens. I might as well say third class citizens because because the so-called whites, the Caucasians, they're first class citizens. Then you got the Asians and the Latinos and everybody else, the Arabs, the East Indians, they all your second class citizens, but they allowed to be white people. They're allowed to classify as white. And then they got you at dead last, where you don't really have any rights. This is why the police and everybody, law enforcement, violates you all the time. This is why they shoot black people first when they get into altercations or confrontations, but they take everybody else in without any harm to them. You see, they're told to do this. This behavior is ordained. It is okayed by the U.S. government, obviously, because the Department of Justice doesn't help black people when they're getting terrorized by racist police, when they're being terrorized by racists out here, random racists out here. They don't do anything for you. And I told y'all why that is. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. It has to do with who you are as the real American Indians. This country hates you because you are the American indigenous people, not because your skin is dark. Because if that was the case, they would hate the East Indians, the ones with the straight hair, the so-called East Indian, the Hindus who have the straight hair. They're classified as white here, and they're just as dark as you. So again, they need us to participate in our own degradation, our own bad treatment in the society. That's how things keep rolling along smoothly. And now they're starting to see that we're not okay with this. And see, that's a problem. They need everybody on board. They need everybody participating in this political system. They need all the people participating in this, even you so-called black people. When you're voting to keep yourself in third place position. You're voting for nothing because you're getting nothing out of it. The very people. And that also speaks to the fact that there are a lot of black people here in this country that are not being counted, and they know that, and they need you. This is why they need you to participate in the process. But that's it. I'm going to close out in the name of Amen, by the power of Amen. In Amen we trust, in Amen we think, and in Amen we continue forward forever. Stay tuned for the next one. Good night.
Many are called, but few were chosen. The numbers are rising and showing. Every time we gather up, you see us growing. Red tie, navy blue suits when we rollin'. Walk a straight and narrow path as if we bowling. And I'm we trust and I'm we think, no room for hoping. Power don't play.